Hi guys, and welcome to this new episode of The Inexplicable. There are stories that don't appear in school books, forgotten mysteries, unsolved and perhaps deliberately hidden. Events that never had a clear ending, that continue to defy any logical explanation, that still leave us today with more questions than answers. Humans are drawn to the unknown, fascinated by what we can't explain and unsettled by what we can't control. In that gray area between reality and legend, mysteries are born that endure through time. So here are 5 incredible solved mysteries that no one has ever told you about. The Child Eater of Bern? Imagine walking through the streets of Bern, the capital of Switzerland, an elegant, orderly, almost fairy tale-like city. The decorated facades, the arcades, the ancient fountains that appear at every corner, a serene atmosphere, almost suspended in time. And yet, right there, among the Renaissance beauties and the quiet streets, something is hidden that suddenly breaks this harmony. A fountain built in 1546, which, instead of celebrating beauty or virtue, displays a disturbing scene. A gigantic man with a cruel and ravenous expression who is about to devour a child. And that's not all. On his shoulders, he carries a bulging sack full of other terrified children, waiting to suffer the same fate. This sculpture, known as the Kindelfresser, the Child Eater or Devourer, is one of the oldest fountains in the city. And yet, after almost 5 centuries, no one has figured out for sure why it was built. For what reason was such a macabre image placed in the center of the Swiss capital, visible to everyone? Obviously, over time, several explanations have been proposed. The first theory takes us to a dark historical context. In fact, the giant is wearing a headdress that closely resembles the Judenhut, the pointed hat that Jews of the time were required to wear as a sign of distinction. According to some historians, the story was therefore a threatening message, a sinister warning directed specifically at the Jewish community of Bern. A way of saying, be careful, this is what awaits you if you dare to challenge the established order. If this were true, the Kindelfresser would not just be a disturbing image, but actually a tool of propaganda and intimidation. Another interpretation, more mythological, sees in the giant a very ancient figure, that of Kronos, the Greek Titan. According to legend, Kronos devoured his own children, one after another, fearing that one of them would one day overthrow him from the throne. The sculpture in Bern, from this perspective, would become a direct reference to that classical myth, the eternal fear of being replaced in the horror to which someone who wants to keep power can go. But perhaps the most unsettling theory is the one that has its roots in local folklore. Some folktales claim that the giant is none other than the elder brother of the city's founder, Duke Berthold. A man consumed by envy for his brother's triumphs, unable to accept his own darkness. It is said that, as time went by, jealousy drove him mad, a madness that turned into a bloody obsession, kidnapping and devouring the children of Bern as a cruel revenge against the city that had favored his brother and cast him aside. A popular belief, of course, but one that could potentially explain why such a frightening monument was erected right there, in the heart of the capital. So who really was the child devourer? A political warning against a persecuted minority, a mythological depiction created to impress and warn, a distorted memory of a dark legend that has its roots in the city's past. The truth is that we don't know, and maybe we'll never know. What remains is the feeling that anyone experiences when they walk past that fountain. A sense of unease that clashes with the serenity of the city, as if the Kindle fresser were there to remind us that even in the brightest places, a hidden dark side can be truly terrifying. The Oxford electric bell, which I'm about to tell you about, is an object that seems to defy time, a little bell that has been ringing non-stop for almost 2 centuries. The sun in touch. Nowadays, it's so faint that it's almost imperceptible, but it has never stopped. Never for almost 200 years. This is the Oxford electric bell, also known as the Clarendon dry pile, one of the longest running scientific experiments in history. It all began back in 1825 when it was designed and built by the instrument makers Watkin and Hill. It was later purchased by Reverend Robert Walker, a professor of physics at the University of Oxford, who brought it to class to show his students. Since then, the bell has never stopped working. It has seen the 19th century, both world wars, the space race, the digital age, and the start of the new millennium, without missing a single beat. It is currently kept at the Clarendon Laboratory at the University of Oxford, protected behind 2 layers of glass. At this point, I imagine you're curious to know how it works. Well, it's easily explained. The mechanism is apparently simple: 2 brass bells each connected to a dry cell, and in the center, a small metal sphere with a diameter of just 4 mm. This sphere swings endlessly from one bell to the other, producing a rhythmic and constant sound at a frequency of about 2 Hz. Every time it touches a bell, it becomes electrically charged and is immediately repelled, only to be attracted to the adjacent bell. A perpetual motion that from 1840 to today has generated about 10 billion chimes, enough to earn it the Guinness World Record as the longest lasting battery in the world. And yet, what puzzles scientists is not so much how it works, but the mystery of the rods. No one knows exactly how they are made. The most widely accepted hypothesis is that they are similar to the dry pile batteries invented by the Italian physicist Giuseppe Zamboni, extremely thin discs of tinfoil glued onto paper soaked in zinc sulfate and covered with manganese dioxide. The ones in Oxford are sealed with an outer coating, probably sulfur, which makes them look at first glance like simple candles. But the truth is that no one can say for sure. Because, well, it's simple. Because opening them would mean ending the experiment forever. Dr. Robert Taylor from the University of Oxford explained that the secret to the bell's longevity could be linked to the fact that it requires very little energy. The little lead sphere charges and discharges continuously, and the only energy losses come from air resistance. In other words, the experiment would be extraordinarily efficient. But like everything, even this scientific miracle will end. In recent decades, the bell has started to slow down, and scholars estimate that within 5 to 10 years at most, the batteries will be completely depleted. At that point, for the first time in almost 2 centuries, the bell will stop, and only then will researchers finally be able to open the mechanism and discover its secret. Until then, the Oxford electric bell remains one of science's greatest mysteries, an almost imperceptible voice that has continued to be heard for 200 years, reminding us that there are phenomena that defy logic, our certainties, and withstand the passage of time. All we can do is wait another 10 years or so. The Tragedy of Moorgate. Imagine you're on a crowded subway train, silently traveling through the city's tunnels. Station lights flash past the windows as passengers read or chat, and everything appears normal. Until, suddenly, just before reaching the next station, you realize something with horror. The train doesn't slow down. Its speed doesn't decrease at all. It races at full speed relentlessly on the tracks, heading straight for a concrete wall. Seconds become eternal, the metallic roar, the sound of screams. And then It was February 28, 1975, when a train on London's Northern City Line crashed at Moorgate Station. In what was described as the worst peacetime rail accident in the city, 43 people lost their lives. 74 were injured, and the images of chaos and destruction remained forever etched in the memories of those who survived. The rescue operation lasted 6 days, and engineers immediately began investigating the possible causes. The dynamics of the accident were nothing short of bizarre. The train was in perfect working order, which led to suspicions that the responsibility lay with the engineer. It was found that Leslie Newson kept his hand on the throttle lever until only 2 seconds before impact, and he made no attempt to protect his face. As the train crashed into the wall, the survivors told the authorities that he had behaved strangely just before boarding the train, walking like an automaton on the station platform before departure. However, the version of those who placed all the blame solely on Newson clashed with the results of the investigations conducted on him by the authorities. It doesn't take much to understand that Newson had no reason to end his own life, even less to drag innocent people along with him. At the time of the events, he was 56 years old and had been working for the London Transport Company for 6 years, without ever showing any signs of mental or behavioral problems. That day, moreover, he had money with him intended for the purchase of a car for his daughter. Why would he have brought such a large sum of money with him if his intention was to disappear? The autopsy revealed that he was in excellent health and that at the time of the accident there were no psychoactive substances in his body, only a minimal trace of alcohol. So what really happened? Was it a moment of mental dissociation? An unknown substance that didn't show up in the autopsy results, that altered his consciousness, even if only for a few moments? Or was it something darker and more mysterious that made that man a robot, unable to stop the train in time, and condemning dozens of people to suffer the same tragic fate as him? No one knows, and decades later, the mystery remains a disturbing enigma that chills the blood in your veins. Could that accident have been avoided? Was it really just the engineer's fault, as they say, or did the real culprits manage to escape their responsibility? Maybe time will tell. The Lights of Aleya. Among the most unsettling and fascinating mysteries are those that seem to defy logic, and few phenomena embody this sense of terror and wonder, like the ghost lights of Aleya. These are strange luminous manifestations that appear exclusively in the heart of West Bengal and the marshy areas of Bangladesh, also known as the Marsh. Ghost lights have been shrouded in mystery for centuries, fascinating not only those who live in those areas, but also enthusiasts of paranormal phenomena all over the world. They appear as luminous spheres flickering in the darkness, seeking a natural glow over stagnant waters. Local fishermen are terrified of them. Their accounts often tell stories of hypnotic luminous dances that sometimes led them away from danger and other times toward risky and potentially deadly situations. According to legend, these lights are nothing more than the form taken by the spirits of deceased fishermen, condemned to wander aimlessly in the place where they lost their lives. People reportedly found lifeless bodies shrouded in mysterious mist along the swamps of Bangladesh. Investigating the causes of their death would be pointless. The authorities would never find any clues suggesting a crime or even a simple accident. For the local fishermen, however, there is no doubt. The Aleya lights are believed to possess an evil will that attracts others. Anyone who looks at them into a trap, leading them into dangerous situations that would often cause their death. And all this exclusively out of revenge against the living, because of the anger caused by their premature, terrifying disappearance. No, well, it's still just a legend, a popular belief. And yet, even when we look at the phenomenon from a strictly scientific point of view, its fascination persists and the mystery surrounding it becomes even deeper. There have been quite a few theories. Some researchers suggest that they are the result of the ionization of methane gas produced in the swamps, or a type of geological phenomenon that occurs exclusively in this part of the world. The Latin term ignis fatuus, meaning will-o'-the-wisp or deceptive fire, describes their essence exactly. Flickering lights, often bluish or greenish, that seem to float above the damp ground, originating from the natural combustion of gases produced by the decomposition of organic matter. Of course, it should be said that similar phenomena have been reported all over the world, from the spook lights of Missouri to the mysterious Naga fireballs on the Mekong in Thailand. But none of the phenomena mentioned possess the sinister charm of the Aleya ghost lights, so closely intertwined with the lives and legends of Bengali fishermen. Today, these lights of unknown origin continue to shine over the marshes of West Bengal and Bangladesh, sometimes observed with great fascination and other times with fear. Whether they are natural phenomena that science does not yet fully understand or truly have a paranormal origin, it matters little. They constantly remind us that the boundary between the world of the living and the supernatural can sometimes blur and become so thin as to be indistinguishable. The mysterious fate of Tutankhamun. And finally, in this overview of solved mysteries, we certainly can't leave out one connected to ancient Egypt and one of its most iconic figures of that era, Tutankhamun. The disappearance of Tutankhamun has always raised more questions than answers. Yes, because the reasons and circumstances of the young pharaoh's death remain largely unknown and continue to puzzle historians, archaeologists, and mystery enthusiasts worldwide. How could a young pharaoh, meant to lead a powerful ancient civilization, vanish so early? Most importantly, what actually happened to him? The truth is that despite the millennia that have passed, there is no certainty about it. But not because Tutankhamun was in perfect health and his early death was unjustified. Despite being just 19, he already suffered so many severe physical problems that it's impossible to say which ones proved fatal to him. The health of poor Tutankhamun was very fragile. He suffered from malaria, a potentially deadly disease. Historians say he had many genetic defects, likely due to being born from an incestuous brother-sister relationship. He had a clubfoot, serious problems with his legs, and other congenital anomalies, which, according to some experts, already represented a death sentence at that time. But there is also another hypothesis, which originated from a discovery made during the analysis of his mummified body, namely the presence of a fracture on the skull. For a long time, this was considered the irrefutable proof that he had been killed. A victim of a violent blow to the head, perhaps inflicted by an enemy. Only more recent studies have suggested that the fracture might have occurred during the mummification process, when the body was treated with rudimentary and often invasive techniques. But that's not all. Further analysis revealed the skull fracture was not the only injury on the pharaoh's body at his death. This gave rise to further intriguing theories, such as that of a possible tragic chariot accident. But even this theory is at least perplexing. Tutankhamun was so deformed and fragile that he couldn't even stand on his own. How could he have climbed onto a war chariot and driven it? Actually, then, the pharaoh's death could have been caused by any of these conditions or by a lethal combination of all of them. The only certain thing is that his last days on earth were marked by great suffering. Maybe we'll never know what really happened to him. Maybe his frail and sick body was simply destined to succumb. Or maybe in that distant Egypt, someone decided that he had to be removed from the scene as quickly as possible. A mystery that, I'm afraid, is destined to last for centuries to come. This is where we conclude our journey through 5 of the most enigmatic and surprising solved mysteries in history. Now, however, it's your turn. Which mystery impressed you the most? Do you have a theory, a hypothesis, or maybe a detail that you think could explain the unexplainable? Let me know in a comment. Unexplainable Podcast is an original written and directed by Luca Perella, with sound design by Matteo Alessandro. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a like, subscribe to the channel on YouTube, or share it with your friends. Goodbye, and see you at the next episode of The Unexplainable.